The first question is, what is one or two items our profession should do to address the dramatic changes our people face in order to proactively create the digital playbook and prepare for the digital transformation? So maybe not the clearest question, but one or two things that we should be doing.
Yeah, I love that question. Candidly, we need to spark a conversation about the impending talent crisis. And, the business finds itself in this, and I use the word crisis. I don't like saying talent war. I hear people say that a lot. But I do firmly believe we're in a crisis. And, business is finding itself in this situation because the digital age is impacting every market. And it's fundamentally changing how we get work done. And so my biggest concern when it comes to the state of business today is how the digital acceleration is impacting the workforce and its ability to drive business value. Because as we know, the world's more volatile and complex now. So, and during the pandemic, we've seen many business leaders rely more and more on us, the L&D practice, talent professionals, to help smooth that transition to new ways of working. Because if one thing was real certain out of the pandemic, it's new ways of working, and definitely the conversation around that have been sort of the next normal for everyone, right? It's been a bumpy ride, though. Obviously, it's a global pandemic we've been going through and are coming out of. The challenges have been significant. Everything from the basics of how to move a distributed workforce in a matter of days and weeks instead of months and years, how to move them to virtual, how to keep them engaged and productive as the world struggled through this pandemic. And, the impending healthcare crisis, the health and well-being of our people and all of the companies, and helping to ensure that they stay healthy as much as possible. That's usually it's been the first and, foremost concern for most of us. And all of this has tested us. And in the last 18 months exposed some critical vulnerabilities in organizational design. So for me, a primary driver for L&D today should be to quickly gain a strong perspective on how to address the crisis of confidence that business leaders have when thinking about the capability of their workforce to deliver on the changing strategies brought to us by, the digital age. There's not one CEO today who's feeling abundantly confident that they've got the resilient workforce with all the skills needed to excel in this time. So it's our time to shine, frankly, and to be effective, we have to make the changes necessary to gain the right insight, the right perspective, to lead the business forward. And in any business, the most critical asset is your people. So it's imperative that you have the right talent at every level in your organization and ready to produce results, right? So, and then on top of all that, when I said crisis before, we're undergoing the largest scale job transformation in human history. And so it's really upon us to move out of the paralysis of being a cost center, trapped in a silo far away from the business, waiting for an order to come through for us to build something. So I would say that that's really the one item that is of the most critical concern, I think, for modern day L&D organizations. You're looking at a very large chasm, if you will, of skills gaps as it applies to your workforce. And if you're not already having that conversation about how to close those skills gaps, then you're late to the game. And so I think that's what we really have to do, is force that move from being just that order taker kind of model of an L&D practice, and really become more assertive in helping to drive that capability building strategy that every company needs.
Question 2. What is your experiential takeaway from your organizational experiences that reappears or resonates over and over again?
Well, it's a good question. Maybe it tells me I should stop moving around to different organizations.
Sorry.
The last 18 months, like just to revisit a bit the other question, but the last 18 months, candidly, I mean, they've shown us that L&D as a practice is actually capable of adaptability and agility at the highest level. I think many of us had to definitely flex and change and pivot our whole operating model during COVID. I was at an airline, global airline during COVID. So as you all know, I definitely had to pivot and our team had to pivot. And from that experience, we've seen across the board, a new conversation is needed. And many of us are having it. What does reappear over and over is a compulsion to fall back into that old operating model. And primarily one we've been in for 50 to 60 years. And like I said earlier, as a cost center, taking orders from the business. And even if that's the trap you're in, you can work on educating and informing your stakeholders to move to a different mindset when it comes to our people's growth and career opportunities. We need to move from, and I've been saying this lately, we need to move from performance management to performance development. We need to rethink just attracting talent. We need to inspire talent to want to be here in our company and inspire them to be able to achieve their best work. So there's a fundamental new script being written. I'm seeing too many companies fall back into their old ways when it comes to the business of learning. People have changed the narrative of what they want from work and what work means to them during the pandemic. They want new ways of working. And if you're going to keep them, you're going to have to work on that. It's really about providing a platform for people to be satisfied and do their best work. And L&D plays a critical role in shaping that experience for the workforce. So my takeaway here is for us to start having a more bolder conversation, if you will, to be bold, that there are shifts that must happen. And that first shift is in our mindsets and also in our stakeholders' mindsets and in the folks that we report to. Otherwise, we'll continue on this path of being less meaningful and less relevant to the people that need us most, which is our workforce right now. So I would say that it's not necessarily always an easy conversation. Some organizations get it more than others. But I think we need to, as L&D, we need to be much more assertive in questioning these old operating models and determining our value proposition and getting the narrative about that value proposition into a story that we can tell our stakeholders and that we can make them more easily understand it.